Hi, welcome to another lecture in anthropology. In a previous lecture, we were discussing the problems of tribal communities. It is Unit 6.2 in Paper 2 Anthropology. So, the tribes, until they were living inside the jungles, they had a minimal life. They had a comfortable life with minimum needs. They had a cooperative living where suppose a family or a clan does not, they are not able to get a hunt, there will be another family or another group which went for the hunt, and they will bring the hunt and share it with these people because they know that some other day they might be in need of their help. So suppose there is a family which is sick and they are not able to go for a hunt or they are not able to do any work. They have a communal way of life in which each of them support each of them have support of the others. Okay, not just in hunt, in all other activities they have cultural activities, they have various practices, beliefs, customs, traditions which they follow in a communal way. All of them, on a particular occasion, all of them will get together and go and worship their ancestral spirits, or all of them will go and worship their totem. So like this there is a communal way of life which they lack once they move out. Okay, say when they move out of the forest and they start working as wage laborers and all, what will happen? Suppose today a family is unable to go for work and they're not able to do the work and bring in wages for that day. So their family would have to starve that day, isn't it? They do not have that communal way of life which they once had when they were living inside the forest. Also, when inside the jungle, they had very minimal needs, right? Food, clothing, shelter, okay, and everyday activities, whatever you need for that, they had enough of leisure, they had enough of cultural activities to keep them engaged, and they had a lot of fun, and they lived a life with whatever they knew, right? There was no competition, there was no race, there was no desire for much better things. Okay, so they had a very simple way of living and they were having a contented life. That is the most important thing, isn't it? No matter how much we have, right? It doesn't apply to them alone, even for us. We can keep aspiring for things better than what we have, right? So, say like how we aspire for mobile phones, right? If we have one version and there's a new version which comes up the next year, we want that. And the next year, if there's another new version which comes up, we want that, right? So there's no end to this. You can buy n number of houses, you can go on a number of trips, you can buy a number of laptops and gadgets and everything, but there will be something new coming into the market and you would want those luxuries, right? The same is with, with the case of everything, whatever you want to acquire, right? So there will always be people who are better than us, who are having better things than us in any ways. Some people will be having more knowledge than us, some will be having more skills than us, some will be more talented than us. So this is a never ending game. So when they are inside the jungle, they have a very contented, simple communal way of life, and they have common properties also. There's no concept of individual property over there, so there's no madness for acquiring property or acquiring wealth. So as I already told you in the previous lectures, here a tribal society is a egalitarian society. That is, all the people, all the members belonging to the tribe are considered equal irrespective of their sex or irrespective of what clan they belong to. Okay, it is only the tribal chief or the group leaders who have some private wealth, or they command extra powers because they are the tribal chief or the tribal leader. But apart from them, all other people belonging to the tribe have a almost all have a equal status. They do not have any higher status or lower status concept over there. So they were really contented with what they have because they do not have any property. There's no aspiration to gain more or acquire more wealth or acquire more property. They had a very contented life. But when they venture out into the forest, when they venture out of the forest due to various reasons like the forest laws, okay, so the forest laws push them outside of the forest, and land alienation. So there will be certain tribes who are hunters, food gatherers, pastoralists, who are dependent on an entire stretch of land for their livelihood. But when they come out, they are completely, they do not have any rights over the forest land. They do not have any claim over the forest which they have lived and their ancestors have been living since several centuries. And even when times of when in the time in the name of development, we bring in so many new projects like multipurpose projects, irrigation projects, mining, which again pushes them out of the forest, and it is one of the reason for land alienation. Then also they have problems like indebtedness, okay, when money lenders cheat them, grab their land, and also they are cheated by outsiders like fraudsters who come and cheat them. They give them money, they woo them into things which they do not need, into buying, they woo them to buy things which they do not need. And they also fall prey to this. They become addicted to liquor, they become addicted to drugs, and because of this also they are pushed towards poverty. Also we have the peasantization and depeasantization. So initially what happened, Jahangir cleared the forest in the Tarai region, and he actually encouraged the people to start cultivation over there. So that was the policies during the earlier times, that is before the advent of the British. But once British came to our country and our country came under the British rule, things changed drastically. Until then, these areas which were inaccessible to the rest of the society now became accessible. And this became a gateway for all other people to go and access this tribal people and cheat them, be it the contractors, be it the people who traders, okay, be it the missionaries. So like this, many people, we travelers, many people started venturing into the tribal areas and started exploiting their ignorance and their vulnerability, and they started cheating them. In addition to that, with the advent of the British, when these people, outsiders, started moving inside, moving, or they started getting access to the tribal regions, there was a break in the communal mode of living, in the traditional way of living of the tribal people. Now the tribal people felt that no longer they are, their tribal way or their tribal life is superior. They started feeling that they are their values or their traditions or beliefs is not at par with the outsiders. So this also started creeping in, and now after the British started opening up these areas, and then now only property became started becoming a that is the land started becoming a property. Until then they did not have even any sense of wealth or property. They did not have, hardly they needed few utensils, a roof over their head, food, shelter, and to lead their everyday life. They did not even have any. If there was some property, it was a communal property where, say there is a land where all of the, there are sacred trees or sacred groves where all of them will communally, once in a when before starting any new, like before the sowing season or before they're going to conduct a marriage or any auspicious occasion, or in case they have facing some difficulties, then the entire tribe, all the members will get together, and communally they will go and worship those places where, communal where they believe that their ancestor spirits reside or their totems reside, like that. Okay, so there was a very good communal way of life which started losing its importance once land became a property. Until then, they did not have this knowledge about property or land becoming a property. So materialism also started penetrating these areas. So traders and moneylenders, they started trapping the tribes, and because they did not have any knowledge about the legal documents whatsoever, and they started using muscle power, right? So if a tribe has to protest against, say he says, I have not taken so much of loans, how can you take over my land and all? They will use muscle men to threaten them, and they will use administrative powers. Okay, because they are well educated, they have links with the people in administration, they will use administrative powers, and they will use these money lenders will use the goons and other people and try to threaten them, and they will throw them out of the land. So once they lose their land, they will either start working as daily wage laborers or bonded laborers, or sometimes they even get into debt bondage. That is, like slavery. So entire life they will work for a landlord, and further their children, and then again next generation of children. Like this, with every passing generation, they are indebted to that landlord, and they continue providing their work to that particular landlord. So like this, they get into a lot of misery. Again, so even just a minute. So when the tribes come out of the forest, they are unable to compete with the other people because they do not have they are not literate like the other people. They do not have degrees. They have not got formal education. And even though we might say that the government is giving them reservation in terms in education and in employment also, even here you cannot consider that all the tribal people are aware of these benefits to take advantage of those. Again, here also what happens is there will be some people, some tribal people out of that who have already got into the mainstream long back, and they have acclimatized, and further they are rich enough to take advantage or to take privilege of all this reservation that is available. Whereas there are really some tribes who are very primitive, who are badly in need of all these reservations, who do not get that. It's very true, isn't it? We are witnessing this even now. Okay, even in the case of UPSC examination or any other examination, you can see that many people, you can find many candidates who avail this reservation. You can find that their parents or their grandparents will be in very good services. They are very well off. They are rich. Okay, their parents would also be officers. Their grandparents would have been officers. They are having a very good background. Still, they will avail this reservation. Whereas you can see that if you go to some tribal hamlet, there will be some tribal children who are very much in need of all this reservation and the policies extended by the government. But they hardly have any idea about this. Neither do they have all the basic education or whatever, they do not have sufficient resources to avail all this. Okay, so they will be in such a condition that they won't even be able to travel to the offices or to nearby colleges and take benefit of all this reservations and all. So such things we are witnessing now also. Then it also happens that there are other people also who fake certificates and take this reservation. That is not very new, right? So we know that many people make fake certificates of caste certificate, income certificate, tribal certificate, and all, and they start taking advantage of this reservation policy. So even when they have to take employment, they hardly are having any skills which are required in the outside, like be it skills to take up any white collar jobs. So preferably with whatever they have to do manual labor or physical labor. So you can see that most of these tribes in around Bihar, they are absorbed into the industries over there. So in industries, you will need many people to do all this manual work, right? So most of the tribes over there, they are absorbed into the industries. Whereas if you check this tribal belt of Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Central Indian tribes, they are mostly settled as landed agriculture. No, they are settled as settled agriculturists. Whereas in South India, again, see, when we speak about a tribe, each tribe is different, okay, be it economically, be it racially. Say in the Northeast, if you see the tribes in the Northeast, they belong to the Mongoloid race, okay. Most of the tribal people in the northeastern region have been converted to Christianity, and they have a different set of problems. So you cannot find a problem or a solution which fits all of them. Okay, though there are certain problems which are common to all the tribes, each and every tribe in each and every region differs, be it racially, be it economically, be it in the occupation which they are doing to run their lives for their livelihood, right? So be it in the problems which they are facing, be it in the status of employment, be it in the condition of health and nutrition, be it in education terms. So you cannot make one solution and extend it to all the tribal people. So here we are not even discussing about the tribals who are outside of India. We are just discussing about Indian tribes only. Okay, even within Indian tribes, depending on the region which they are living. So again, depending on the occupation which they are doing. So I told you in Northeast it is mostly the Mongoloid race. Okay, most of the tribes belong to the Mongoloid race, and there you can see almost most of the tribe have been converted to Christianity. So there you can find their occupations are very different. So they depend on shifting cultivation. Okay, their belief is different. Their customs, rituals are entirely different from the tribes in the other regions. So in these tribes in around Bihar, Orissa, these region, they have and again in the level of assimilation. Okay, that is also an important criteria. So you can find that certain tribes are still in the very primitive stage. They are in a pre-agricultural level of technology. They have completely no education at all. They do not have any contact with the outside world. So such tribes we call them as particularly vulnerable tribal groups. That is PVTG. So earlier we used to call them as PTGs. That is primitive tribal group. So earlier we used to call them as PTG, which means primitive tribal group, and then later it was renamed as particularly vulnerable tribal group. So even in tribes we have this different the classification of tribes based on their level of assimilation. So there are certain tribes who are very well assimilated into the mainstream society, and now you can find that they are occupying very good positions in be it in educational sector or be it in administrative offices. Say for example the Meenas of Rajasthan. Okay, so they are also a tribal group, but if you see them, you cannot find any people. Hardly find anyone who is not well educated, who is not rich enough in this tribal community. Okay, these people have got assimilated into the mainstream several ages back, and they are now occupying very good positions in government sector and private sector, in education, in terms of wealth, in terms of property. They are having a very high status. Still, they come under the ST category. So even we had one BBMP commissioner. BBMP means here it is the local, it is the municipal body of Bangalore. So it is called Brihat Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike. So we had one BBMP commissioner who belonged to this Meena community. Okay, so like that you can find these people. These are also tribal people, but they are having a very high status in society. Whereas on the other hand, we also have few tribals who are still living in the pre-agricultural level of technology, who are very backward, who are still living without any contact with the outside world. So like say for example the Jaravas, the Sentinelese. Okay, so those tribes come under this category of PVTG. So you cannot extend one program or one policy, or you cannot find one problem or remedy for all the tribes as such. So each of the tribe is different. Each tribe is different depending upon the occupation, depending on the region which they live, depending on the educational level, how what is their employment level, what is their, whether they are into poverty, what are their health conditions, what occupation they are doing, whether they have got assimilated into the mainstream, whether they are living in near towns or rural areas, or they are still living inside the forest, whether they have been rehabilitated by some programs. So each tribe has its own problems, and we have to, as an anthropologist, try to understand the tribal problem from their point of view and try to devise programs or strategies for resolving them, instead of just like how we cannot make programs for the entire country, right? Whatever, see, we might need desert development program in Rajasthan, which we might not need in some other state, right? So you might read a ravine program in one state which might not be needed in another state. So because of and our India has so many types of tribes. Yeah, here when I'm speaking about northeastern tribes or central Indian tribes, I'm just mentioning the few common ones. Whereas if you take a list, if you go to your if you go to tribal ministry website, and if you just take a list of all the tribes which are present in your particular state, say I have done that with my own state in Karnataka, there are so many tribal names which we wouldn't have even heard of. Like in Karnataka we have the Halaki, Hakkipiki, Holeyas. So like that there are so many tribal names which we would have not even heard of. We only are speaking about the prominent tribes in each region. So this needs a localized approach. So the problems also vary and the solutions also need to be designed or need to be planned according to the needs of that tribal people and what exactly their problem is. Okay. Further in the previous lecture, we were discussing about the health and nutrition problems of the tribal people, like their addiction to liquor, addiction to smoking, and they have nutritional deficiencies. And I also told you that they are also subjected to even venereal diseases as well as sexually transmitted diseases also. Okay, so in one lecture I was telling you in one of the previous lecture that how when this safari, that is Jarawa safari, was happening that time illegally, that is not legal. So illegally, it was happening. There were many incidences where the Jarawa women gave birth to children who didn't look like Jarawas. Okay, so that is a proof that they have been they were that the outsiders have had physical relationship with them. And what these people do is when they get a child like that, they will kill it because they believe it is not their own, it doesn't look like them, they kill it. So the even it is not just in the case of Jarawas, even outside when they move out, when they are rehabilitated, when they move out of the forest due to poverty, due to unemployment and other reasons, it is women who are even men also face lots of difficulties, but women are pushed into prostitution and all these activities, and they are also subjected to various sexually transmitted diseases. So that is also a concern. Okay, so in addition to that, here when we are speaking about the diseases among the tribal people, one more important point which you have to keep in mind is the occupational hazards or occupation based diseases, like like the occupational diseases or hazards, like asbestosis, silicosis, siderosis, farmer's lung, bagasosis. Okay, so these are the various occupational hazards which they get subjected to. So I told you in this Bihar, Orissa, in this region, most of the tribal people get absorbed into the industries nearby for manual labor to work to do manual labor work, and because of the various occupations in which they get into, they are subjected to various occupational hazards or diseases as well, like the asbestosis. So what is asbestosis? When you working in an industry which deals with asbestos and you inhale a lot of asbestos particles, okay, they are very fine particles, and you inhale that on a day-to-day basis, you get this lung disease and breathing issues, that is called as asbestosis. And regarding these occupational diseases, we'll be discussing all of this in length in another chapter called Epidemical Anthropology in paper 1. Okay, so in paper 1 we have a chapter called as Epidemical Anthropology, where we'll be discussing all these diseases in depth. So I'll just tell you what each one of this and move on to the next topic. So also silicosis. So silicosis also here when they work in glass or tile industries or quarries, mining and all. So again there by inhaling all this glass particles and all regularly, they get subjected to again lung diseases. Similarly with siderosis, that is because of when they work in iron ore mining industries. Then farmer's lung. So farmer's lung happens in agriculture also. So what after harvest, they have to separate after harvesting the after when it is time of harvest, they will dehusk. That is, after removing the food grains from the crop, they will remove the husk. They will remove the husk to separate the grain from the husk. So that process is called as dehusking, and during this process also they inhale a lot of these fine husk particles, which leads to lung problems. That is called as farmer's lung and bagasosis. So this you can find commonly in people who work in the sugarcane industries, where they crush the sugarcane to make molasses. What is molasses? What is bagasse? You studied all this in school itself, right? Okay. So that also that leads to bagasosis. So we shall be discussing all of this in detail in another chapter. So these are the various occupational hazards which they get subjected to. Further, um, okay, further again there are problems like pseudo-tribalism, where a non-tribal tries to claim a tribal status. That is called as pseudo-tribalism. Okay, so pseudo-tribalism is an act where a non-tribal tries to claim tribal status. So they do this by making fake certificates, or a non-tribal will try to marry a tribal person and claim their status. Okay, so all this is because of the benefits which they're going to get in the form of reservation and other benefits. Then again, there is a problem of the migration and pseudo-tribalism also. So what happens when, see, I already told you there is no proper definition of a tribe. Okay, we do not have a certain set of criteria which we say that, okay, if this all these criteria, we put a tick or in a checkbox of all this criteria, then we can call this person as a tribe. And if they do not satisfy all this criteria, then we can call them as a non-tribal. So even though we speak, even see, there is, it is anthropologists who are so much into the study of tribal people. See, even though other subjects or other disciplines or other people also study about the tribals, you can find that sociologists also, to a certain extent, they speak about tribal people, and so many other people are curious and they study about tribal people. It is anthropologist who gives, who takes the first place in study of, in the maximum study of the tribal population. And even anthropologists are unable to come up with a definition which is in consensus with all the people, be it sociologists, be it administrators, right? We cannot make a single definition which satisfies all of them. Just like how, when sir would have discussed marriage, he would have told you that there's no universal definition for marriage, isn't it? So marriage differs from place to place. You cannot, in one place you might say that it is between a man and woman, whereas in another community you can find that even woman marriages are allowed, right? In so like that there are various changes throughout. So nowhere can you, when I speak about woman marriage, I just recalled this. So recently, during COVID times, there was a lesbian couple who fought in the High Court of Delhi to get a marriage certificate. So I just watched a video on this, and they say that they've been living together from more than 10 years, and still they did not have any much difficulty, and did not actually want a marriage certificate for anything, or they were just happy. But what happened during COVID times was, when they try to get medical insurance for for their partner, or when they try to get life insurance, or when they wanted to open a bank account jointly, right? Or when they wanted to register their property in their partner's name. So they everywhere they went, even when they went to a bank, they could not open a joint account, because a joint account is meant only for either business partners, right? Or it can be between a husband and wife. Whereas here, because both of them belong to the same sex, they could not even open a joint account, and that was, they felt that no, we cannot go ahead like this, and they fought the High Court, and finally they managed to marry and get a marriage certificate. So kind of India is becoming more and more acceptable of these things now. That is a welcome progress, right? Fine. Um, so we were speaking about, yeah, migration and pseudo tribalism. So what happens, I already told you in the previous lectures that we do not have any proper definition. We say that when we say a tribe, we say that these people are living in far areas, inaccessible areas, and in forest, and they have a distinct culture which is different. They have a distinct culture, tradition, belief, religion, magic, practices which are very much different from the rest of the society, right? And they are still living in a primitive form. So like this, and they are an endogamous unit, that is, they follow tribe endogamy, whereas they follow clan exogamy. And they are various occupations which they do, like hunting, food gathering. Some of them are even ironsmiths. Some of them do handicraft items. So like this, we can just say various features of the tribes. So features of the tribes, they belong to the so and so area, right? So this is all we can say, but we cannot give one proper clear cut definition which is in consensus with all of them, right? So that is a difficulty in identifying who exactly is a tribal and who is a non-tribal. So because of this confusion, even in our constitution, we do not have a proper definition for what a tribe is. So our constitution, only in a few articles, it says that the president is empowered to identify any to include a tribe or a name into the list of scheduled tribe, along with the permission or along with the consensus with the governor of that state. So say for example, a tribe is included in ST list in the state of Karnataka. However, they might not be having that ST status in another state, say for example Andhra Pradesh. So these are also problems. Okay, so because of that also, what will do, a community which might not be listed as a tribe in one state, but they might know that their tribe has a ST status in another state. So they will migrate to that state and they will start claiming reservation over there. So that is also a problem. Again, I told you about marriage and pseudo tribalism also. There are people who is a non-tribal, who will marry a tribal and claim tribal status. So like this, we have there are even people who are claiming tribal status through various fraudulent means as well, right? So in addition to this, they are also suffering various social disabilities, right? Like untouchability, forced labor. They have been facing human trafficking. That is also very rampant, isn't it? So you can find that like how it is done in villages for scheduled caste people. Even scheduled tribes are also treated in a very they are not treated in an equal manner. They are not treated equally with the dignity that they deserve. Instead, they will be treated as untouchables. They will be forced to to work as they will be asked to do forced labor to work in their farms or work for landlords for several generations as slaves. And they will sometimes there are chances where they will be trafficked also, especially women and children. They will be trafficked to other regions or other states or countries also for obviously for money. They will be pushed into illicit activities, let's say for sexual needs, for trafficking of humans, children. Okay, and they will be denied access of the public property and resources, be it the commonwealths, be it entry into temples, right? So even now there are, if you go to certain temples, certain they say that they, at least not in cities and very well known temples and all, but if you go to remote places, in villages, in remote villages, far off villages and all, still even now they follow this practice that only the higher community people can enter into those temples, and the other lower untouchables cannot enter into the temples. So like this, they have been facing a lot of social discrimination, and ill-treated, okay, and they are denied of education, right? And further, we will be discussing about judgment system also later. Okay, so we were supposed to discuss one more important problem of the tribal community, that is education or illiteracy, which we shall discuss now. Are you following so far whatever we are discussing? It's very simple, isn't it? Right? It is not very difficult where you have to break your head. These are all common things which we are seeing in our day-to-day life, right? Not rocket science, where you have to understand physics, maths, aerodynamics, everything. Fine.